The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. Unlock a brand new offer for new customers. Play just $5, $50 in bonus funds. So when you stop at on Fantasy, throw in code SGPN. Once again, $5, get $50 in bonus funds with the code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Game Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It's currently Sunday morning, August 17th, around 2:40 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the final in Cincinnati, which is taking place on Monday. For some reason, not taking place on Sunday. Either way, though, it's going to be a pretty fun matchup between Sinner and Alcaraz, or hopefully it is, and we'll break that down. Now, I do have to point out the schedule. Winston-Salem does start on Sunday. However, I am flying back Sunday morning in about 6.5 hours. So because of that, I didn't have enough time to actually research anything for the outright. So we're going to do that potentially a day late. Apologies, might miss the first round. We'll still do the episode for Winston-Salem, but point is we didn't have the time to actually do the research. Didn't want to half-ass it, so instead going to Cincinnati first. Then we'll do the Winston-Salem episode probably tomorrow. Either way, though, before we get into any of the breakdown of the final between Sinner and Alcaraz on Monday, a reminder that you can also check out the app for SGPN for all of our free picks and podcasts in one easy location, down the SGPN app, wherever you do get your apps. Anyway, so starting off with the recap of what happened in the semis. First of all, the lock and dog picks were not good. A full disclosure, for the lock, did lose with Sinner team total under 12.5 games, minus 129. No regrets there, to be honest, even though it was really not close because there were no breaks or break points in the entire first set. Sinner was minus 2,000, straight sets was minus 350. Had to get creative, and Sinner did break twice in the match. The problem was both were in the second set. If I told you pre-match that Sinner would not get broken, I don't think he faced a break point in the entire matchup, and he'd break out main twice, would you take the team total under 12.5 minus 129? The answer is yes. So I feel like the match played out the way similar to the way that I thought it would, where I picked Sinner 6-4, 6-3, and he won by 5 games, which he did. He won 7-6, 6-2. The problem was you saw Opmain hold 6 times in a row, which was not really expected, and the Sinner ended up going over, even though he did coast in the second set. No regrets, though, minus 2,000. Thought he'd win in straight sets, but had to get a bit creative. Didn't work out. For the dog, though, picked Zverev plus 2.5 to plus 105, as he had some chances early, had a low 40 early in the match, did not convert. Then he ended up getting broken, lost the first set, then he got injured. And at that point, he was a dead man walking, never stood a chance. He broke Alcaraz because Alcaraz double faulted 4 times in one game. That was it. Zverev couldn't move. I don't know if his back was bothering him, his legs, but either way, he was completely shot, and he had no chance. So not really close there. The injury report didn't help us there because right before the match, there were rumors that Zverev cut his pre-match warm-up early because he wasn't feeling well. And at that point, we kind of thought we were dead. But either way, it is what it is. So I picked up a loss there for the dog. That one, I regret just not backing, once again, Alcaraz blindly. The lock, I don't regret. Look, you got to get creative at minus 2,000. And we picked Sinner to win comfortably. He won by 5 games, just not the breakdown per set that we needed. So picked up a loss for both plays. Either way, though, a point is we'll look for a better episode here for the final, taking place on Sunday. Before we get into on Monday. Before we get into the actual preview, though, of the actual matches, a reminder that you can, before we recap the matches and we end up doing a preview of the final, reminder, you can also find the podcast on Spotify and Apple. So once again, subscribe there, or write a review on Spotify or Apple. Subscribe on YouTube. A reminder, you can also find the merchandise for the Tennis Gambling Podcast on the SGPN merch store. We have shirts, which I'm actually wearing right now. So there you go. Tennis Gambling Podcast. If you do want a shirt, different colors, very comfortable, recommend getting yourself something there. Plus, a reminder, once again, to check out the app for all of our free picks in one easy location. Anyway, for the recap of the semis, basically went through it, but I'll do it quickly. Sinner looked great, nothing else to add. I felt like Opmain was playing out of his mind, served very, very well, 0 break points in the entire first set. But eventually, Opmain double faulted first point of the tiebreak, and it felt like the wind was taken out of his sails once that happened, and Sinner kind of coasted in the breaker. Then he eventually coasted, got a break early, broke again to win the match. Sinner was fantastic. I mean, nothing else to add. Every match he plays, he looks amazing on hard court. Did not get broken. He won a bunch of points on the serve, and it felt like Opmain never really stood a chance when it came to returning. Sinner won 32 of his 35 first serve points, 91%. He won 68% of the second serve points. Opmain, by comparison, won 44%. So we were right. We thought that Opmain's second serve would be his undoing. The problem was in the first set, he hit an absurd number of first serves. Ottman landed 78% of his first serves, and he only won 38% of his second serve points. So if Ottman faulted a couple more times, we had a shot there. But either way, point is great serving early, lost the breaker. Felt like he kind of mentally checked out for a second, and Sinner jumped him and eventually got up a break and won from there. So really nothing else to add. Nice job by Sinner, looking good. Nice job by Ottman, though, making a great run to the semis. Nobody thought it would happen, but either way, Sinner. And unfortunately for Ottman, that was the end of the road. For the other matchup, it was also ugly because Zverev got injured and had to basically no-show the back end of the second set. Alcaraz, though, did win the first set 6-4. Zverev hit a bunch of first serves early. Didn't matter. Alcaraz broke him anyway. Then he held it out, and then you saw Zverev go once again behind the break early to start the second set. This time he broke back, and then he got broken back immediately, and he lost. So it didn't really matter anyway. But point is, Alcaraz served very, very well. He won 81% of the first serve points, 63% of the second serve points, had 11 aces. So overall, he did well. But Zverev, at the end of the day, his body betrayed him, just simply put, and Alcaraz ended up putting him away pretty easily. So either way, a point is ended up seeing a pretty straightforward collection of semis. I'd say the most competitive portion was either the first couple games of the Alcaraz and Zverev match, where he blew a low of 40, or the first set, which was just great serving, and then Sinner eventually buried him. But either way, we got the matchup we thought we'd get in the final, which was getting Sinner and Alcaraz, and hopefully it ends up working out to, I'd say, the expectations of everybody of having another marathon unfold here on hard court in the Monday matchup. Now, I do want to point out, by the way, for outrights, we ended up having an automatic winner for the event, which is the bright side of the equation. So for the outrights, once again, we got very, very creative with the outrights, being completely sarcastic. We had Sinner at plus 120, and we had Alcaraz at 270. That's it. That's all we took. Because why would you bother taking anybody else? It's a waste of money. Said it for Wimbledon. What do you know? We got Sinner and Alcaraz again. So no matter what happens, we win. But Alcaraz, of course, would pay a bigger price. So we can see what happens there. But either way, point is we do have an automatic winner for the outright, either with Sinner at 120 or Alcaraz at 270. Can't complain. Once again, not a true victory lap because, what do you expect? But if the whole point of doing the outrights is to pick the winner, and I only see two people that can win, then why would I waste money betting on anybody else? It's a waste. So once again, Sinner and Alcaraz did their parts. Automatic winner will hopefully get a fun matchup in general. And if you want to potentially balance out the amounts to try to get something more even, as opposed to 270 and 120, you can. But either way, once again, we'll let it ride. We'll see what happens. But we do have an automatic winner for the outright coming up on Monday. Anyway, nothing else to really add. Once again, kind of an underwhelming two matches there for the semis. Before we get into, though, the preview of the final between Alcaraz and Sinner, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is MyBookie.ag. They're available in a ton of locations. You can bet on baseball, WNBA, golf, and, of course, football futures. You can also use crypto for deposits and payouts to yourself for an account. Use code SGPN to get 100% of the matchup to 1K. Terms and conditions apply. MyBookie.ag promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm because they have smart signals, and they've been crushing it in baseball and WNBA. So check it out for both sports. WNBA, by just comparison, has been really, really incredible. Compared to what I'd say other models, et cetera, are doing. Smart signals are 97 and 65 in July with a 15.64 ROI percent. They've been very, very good in August as well. Check out the Rhythm app. Use the smart signal. Start betting smarter. And a reminder, they do have a nice promo link with Rhythm for a 7-day free trial. Use the link sportsgamepodcast.com Rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the matchups on Saturday. Time to move on into the final, taking place on Monday between Alcaraz and Sinner. So for this one, Sinner, decent favorite, minus 165. You have Alcaraz at around plus 140. For the spread, I see 1.5 for Sinner for the games, minus 140, plus 1.5, plus 109 for Alcaraz. For the actual 2.5, Sinner is around even money for the minus 2.5. Alcaraz is around a minus 120 for the plus 2.5. The over-under in games at 22.5. Over is minus 125. The under is a plus 105. And for the actual set spread, Sinner in straight sets plus 150. Alcaraz to win a set is around minus 200. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 130. For team totals, 12.5 on both guys. Sinner over is at minus 135. The under is plus 105. And for 12.5, Alcaraz, even money on the over. Under is minus 130. So, for the actual meetings, we know Alcaraz has been good in the head-to-head, but We saw them split in the last two Grand Slam finals because Sinner choked in the French Open 3 championship points, and he ended up losing after leading by 2-0. As for Wimbledon, he got revenge, lost the first set, then won the next 3 comfortably, as he ended up winning his first ever Wimbledon title. Now, on hard court, they faced off last year a couple of times. First time was in Saudi in the exhibition, and you ended up seeing Sinner beat Alcaraz in 3. Beijing was last year. Alcaraz did win in 3 there. So they faced off twice last year on hard court in the back end of the calendar. Faced off in Indian Wells as well that year, and Alcaraz won in 3. Significantly slower, I'd say, pace than the courts here in Cincinnati. So you could argue, even though it's the same surface, doesn't really matter by comparison. But Alcaraz was 2-1 on hard court against Sinner last year. Now, Sinner, we know, had a bit of a mental block against Alcaraz, which was on full effect in the French Open final. Sinner, though, seems to have solved that issue, at least on grass, because he dominated the final 3 sets, and he might have exercised some demons in the process. Now, for the path of both players, Sinner's been coasting. He has not dropped a set yet, defending champion. We know that he's the best hardcourt player in the world. We'll see if he can keep it rolling in this one. Sinner, though, beat Altman, beat Felix, beat Manarino, beat Diallo, and beat Galan. So a pretty weak level of competition up to this point. His best win is arguably Felix, which means nothing because Altman had the dream run. He was playing at a top 10 level, but still ranked in the 130s. The point is Felix was the highest basically ranked guy that he had to beat, and that's pretty weak, and that's saying something. But either way, they're looking at Alcaraz at a harder path by comparison by a decent amount. So looking at the actual Alcaraz path, of course, he ended up beating Zverev in the semis on Saturday. He was a bit injured, but still counts. Rublev has been a top 10 guy before, so still 1 in 3 there. Nardi, Medvedev, and Zoomer. So not the toughest competition in the first 3, but Rublev and Zverev definitely better than Altman and Felix. Now, do I really care that much? You could argue no. You could argue that Sinner's only looks so good because of the weak competition. I disagree. I mean, Sinner won the U.S. Open. He won the Australian Open. He's just an absolute monster on hard court, and it feels like the power, the precision, and the serving is definitely dangerous, and he kind of neutralizes most good returners because of how much power he just puts on every shot. It feels like he kind of bullies everyone around the court. Now, Alcaraz, we know, is one of the only people on court who can stand up to him in terms of defense and in terms of his own firepower. Alcaraz's serve was very good against Zverev. Couple of hiccups, though, with the first serve percentage of the 4 double faults in one game. That might be the story of the match, though. I think Sinner should be favored, obviously, being the better hardcourt player. I think that Sinner is defending champion for a reason. The fact is, with the fast courts here, the power that he generates, he really just takes the racket out of your hand. And if the argument is Alcaraz will be able to prolong rallies, force Sinner into some uncomfortable spots, maybe, but I think Sinner will be able to shorten the rallies more often than Alcaraz can prolong them, just based on his overall aggressiveness and his accuracy. I really think it's a great, I'd say, combination of Sinner's skill set with the court speed here in Cincinnati. I think he's going to win. Now, do I think 165 is a fair price? To be honest, probably. You could argue maybe a bit steep because Alcaraz has been good in the head-to-head in general, so maybe like minus 150 on Sinner. I think he should be favored, though. Even though he won Wimbledon, I do think that hard court's his best surface, and Alcaraz, you could argue, with the fast-paced hard courts, is not at his best. And I think that you're looking at what could be a situation where this match is close, but Sinner serves better, and Alcaraz might leave the door open one too many times, and Sinner might get the much-needed break down the stretch. For this one, though, I think Sinner's going to win. I think that he is really tough to bet against ever on hard court. And yes, Alcaraz found a way to beat him a couple times last year on hard court. He just had his number. But it feels like Sinner maybe mentally finally got over that hump, where after the French Open, you wondered how he would respond to Wimbledon, and he responded very, very well. I think he wins again. I think Alcaraz, despite looking sharp for decent portions of matches, has not really played a complete match, so to speak. I think that the close he got to a complete match, I mean, the Zverev one was kind of a gift because the opponent got injured. But Alcaraz has had a couple of up and downs. His best match was arguably against Nardi or Medvedev in terms of just overall dominance. And even Medvedev was 6-4, 6-4. I just think they're on different tiers right now based on hard court dominance, and I think that Sinner will show it in this one. If Alcaraz wins, would I be shocked? No. Alcaraz is really, really good. I'm not trying to disrespect him, but I think Sinner is better on this particular court with the speed, and the fact is he is a dominant hard court player. He's won 3 straight hard court Grand Slams There's a reason why you pick him every time on hard court, and you're usually in good shape. So I do think that Alcaraz maybe keeps one set close, but I think Sinner will just eventually find openings and win, kind of like the Opmain match, where the first set might be very close with good serving. Alcaraz might blink. Sinner might just jump through the door and win. I could see that happening. A 7-6, 6-3 type of matchup where it's entertaining. There's a bit of drama, but Sinner just locks down when he needs to, and Alcaraz's shot selection might be a bit too risky for his own good, and that kind of just is, once again, the reason why he loses. Now, I do see a couple of comments here. I see one from an educative. I think the heat got to Zverev. Zverev has a medical condition as well, which does not respond well to heat. So you could argue that it was some type of combination where maybe his medical condition resulted in his body betraying him. Could be that too. I think he might have lost anyway, to be honest, because Alcaraz broke him, and it felt like Zverev was really not, I don't want to say mentally engaged, because I feel like his body betraying him kind of resulted in him mentally checking out. But he does have, I think it's diabetes, I think. And the fact is that doesn't exactly respond well when you're playing in the sauna that is Cincinnati. So I do think that his medical condition played a factor in the heat, but it's unfortunate. But it's a medical condition he's had his entire career, and he's going to have to overcome it. But either way, Alcaraz got the job done there. I do think you're looking at, Van's mentioned that Alcaraz is the pick in the hot sun. The truth is Sinner can handle the heat well, too, because he's won Australia on 2 separate occasions. So I don't know if the heat matters that much. I'd argue that Alcaraz is probably better in the heat technically, but Sinner went through it last year and he won. And the fact is both guys have really looked fine in the heat. So I don't see that being a factor much at all. For Zverev, it might have been because he has the medical concerns and he ended up quitting because of it. Shelton ran out of gas in that matchup. But I think Sinner and Alcaraz in the heat should be fine. They're pretty well-conditioned athletes, obviously, after the epic they had in the French Open playing for 5+ hours. I think the heat's not that big of a deal for this matchup. I think it was earlier in the actual tournament. Not now. I think both guys are just in good form. There's a day off as well because they don't play Sunday. They should be fine, in my opinion, for the actual heat. Van's asking if I think that the day off matters or the birthday party for Sinner, who ended up having a birthday during his match. I think Almain got him a present. Almain collects Pokemon cards. I don't know if he gave him a Pokemon card or not, but Almain seems like a nice guy, so at least there's that. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. You could argue that Sinner maybe celebrated a little bit. Truth is, when you are an elite athlete and you are wired properly and you're not Tsitsipas and you're not like messing around all the time and you're fully committed to your craft, I think there might be a small dinner with his coaches, his physio, family, etc. Do I think that Sinner pigged out and ended up getting a bunch of bottles of wine? No, I don't think it really matters. I think Sinner treated it like a fun moment. I'll go back to training. I mean, him and Alcaraz are clearly the best athletes in the sport by a mile, and I think that they are going to come out and put on a show on Monday. You could argue maybe that Sinner might be a little bit out of sorts just based on the letdown maybe for a birthday, but I don't believe in that at all. I think Sinner is going to come in focused. It's his rival. I think that's all the energy and motivation he needs. I get why you bring it up, Van, but I don't really care, honestly. I just think when you have a rivalry like this, where both guys push each other to be the best possible, I think a birthday kind of takes a back seat. If he was taking on, for example, like maybe Zverev or Fritz, maybe he might be a little bit out of sorts early. Maybe he has a bit of a mental letdown. But Alcaraz, no. I think that they both show up ready for war, and I think that the birthday's not going to be a serious issue for me, at least for Sinner having a letdown. So no, I think it's a non-factor, and I think that Sinner will win anyway. I see Van asking about the total. To get into my picks, though, give me Sinner minus the games here. I think they'll win. I like the over, too. It's tough to go against the over when you have so many marathons between them. So for the head-to-head, for reference, so if you want to include the Kings Slam that happened in Saudi last year, a bunch of meetings have not ended in straight sets. So, of course, Wimbledon went to 4. French Open went 5. Rome went 2. So you had the Saudi one, which went 3. Beijing, which ended up going 3 as well. French Open went 5. And Indian Wells ended up going 3. So based on that, that does mean that 6 of the last 7 meetings have not ended in straight sets. Usually you get a war, and that's, I feel like, a pretty safe assumption here. So I don't mind the over as well. Van, I do see 22.5, though, at minus 125. I'd rather take that for the chance of a 7-6, 6-4, obviously. So I like the over in this one. I think Sinner wins. I don't think Alcaraz gets destroyed, but I do think that Sinner eventually is just going to be too much to handle on hard court. I do think that he can neutralize Alcaraz's defense with his firepower and his precision, and I think his serving is objectively better than Alcaraz's. Give me Sinner in this one, and I don't mind the over as well for the matchup. Anyway, it's going to wrap it up for the actual picks. Now it's time for the lock and dog. Before getting into the lock and dog, reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Circa Million, Circa Survivor, because Circa is having three of the biggest football contests upcoming season. It's Circa Million, Circa Survivor, and Circa Rendissimo, or $20 million guaranteed prizes. And a reminder that you can hang out with SGPN on the 21st, 23rd for Circa Contest Weekend if you want to sign up. Amazing weekend, including live shows at open bars. You get 15% of your stay at Circa with the code SGP15. Contest open to everyone. South of Nevada. Play for anywhere, though, with help of proxy at footballcontest.com. Use code SGP, $50 off your proxy fees. We're also doing fantasy because they're doing Best Mania. I think also number one for fantasy football. You have 15 million in prizes, 2 million for first place. No waiver wire. No arguments about trades. Best players where to play fantasy football. You can also use Underdog for pick'em entries if you want to try to create your own entries. You want to 500 times your money. And a reminder, they have a brand new deal. So if you want to join the actual platform, play for $5. Get $50 in bonus funds when you sign up on fantasy with promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the final between Alcaraz and Sinner, Cincinnati. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, give me Sinner team total over 12.5 at minus 135. Sinner, we know, has been amazing in the tournament. He's not dropped a set yet, but he's had a couple breakers. 3 of the last 4 matches that featured a tie break. Opman had a breaker as well. I think that both guys can serve well for at least a set, and that's good enough for me. I think Sinner will be pushed to a 7-5 or 7-6. Historically, you've seen a bunch of long sets between them. In fact, there's been a 7-5 or a 7-6 set in 11 of the last 14 head-to-head meetings. So you tend to see, once again, at least one marathon set. I'll expect that to repeat itself again here on Monday, and I think Sinner could win that set or lose it, and it goes 3, and you're in good shape. But I do like the head-to-head history, supporting the angle, and on top of that, Sinner has gone over this team total in 4 of his last 5 hardcore matches against Alcaraz. So win or lose, it's usually a marathon, and with that being the case, Sinner does tend to go over this number, whether he wins or loses. So if Sinner ends up winning a set, I think you're in very good shape anyway, and the fact is, I do think you're going to get at least one marathon in there. So give me Sinner, team total over 12.5 games as my log at minus 135. For the dog, I'm going to go with Sinner, minus 2.5 games here at plus 100. Sinner, we know, is the best hardcourt player in the world. He has not dropped a set yet. He's been great. And you're looking at Alcaraz, who's been good. I think that he's been streaky. I think that's the word I'll use. Dropped a set to Rublev, dropped a set to the Zoomer, beat Zverev, who was not 100%, did double fault 4 times in a game. I think that Alcaraz can leave the door open like Opman did, and Sinner ends up jumping through it while also holding his own serve pretty easily. And you see a pretty important break at some point in the second set. But I think that Sinner can get there in a couple ways. Straight set win, maybe a 3-setter. Alcaraz no-shows a set, and suddenly you have a bit of, I'd say, leeway if Sinner does lose the set. But simply put, it's even money. I think it's a good price. And the fact that Sinner has been really good on serve. He's held serve 93% of the time in this event, and Alcaraz held serve 85%. So both guys serving well, but Sinner's been better at serving. And I think that Sinner should be the better server here. Give me Sinner to cover the spread here at even money as my dog. So once again, the plays here for the lock and dog. Lock's going to be on Sinner. Team total over 12.5 games of minus 135. Dog's going to be on Sinner, minus 2.5 at plus 100. It's going to wrap it up for the show. Once again, apologies to Winston-Salem. We're going to have to probably punt on the first day, the round of 64 for the outrights. Going to have to do that after because I'm traveling back from Vegas. Apologies there. But until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.